Sports anime. The sole culprit for making unathletic nerds think that they can try out a sport and through sheer will, determination, and screaming from the top of your lungs that you can succeed at that sport, only to get a reality check and go back to their cave and stick to watching Demon Slayer. But now we have another potential offender into brainwashing weeps doing things they hate the most. Going outside for physical activities. Yeah, that's right, I'm talking about Blue Lock. I want you guys to ask yourself what makes a good sports anime. Is it the show's ability to show how hype the sport is through high quality animation and various story arcs throughout the show? Maybe it's about the distinct characters and their unique traits and skills that shows a different perspective on how to play the sport. Or maybe you're thinking it's about the character arcs and their development over the course of the series, who are usually underdogs since that's an efficient way in making viewers empathize and root for these characters, because they always have a Herculean obstacle to overcome, which is more often than not in the form of a huge weakness or skill gap against other overpowered opponents. If you were thinking any of these, then you are wrong. A good sports anime is about hot, ripped, musky anime men and all the potential yaoi ships that the average weeaboo fangirl with a kitted out anime-list profile and a Steam library full of visual novels only dares to fantasize about. And in that aspect, Blue Lock certainly delivers. I mean, we might as well get the obvious joke out of the way with. The BL does indeed stand for Blue Lock and not Boys Love. Very hard to tell with this anime, I know. But anime twinks aside, Blue Lock is a pretty decent sports anime about football on crack, or for the freedom fighters out there, soccer on crack. If you're looking for an anime to accurately represent the sport of football, then good luck looking for it, because you're not gonna find it here. I wouldn't be surprised if canonically it was revealed that all these characters are mental asylum patients who are all on anabolic steroids. It's unrealistic and over the top, but I think that's part of the charm of it. It reminds me a lot of Shaolin Soccer or Kuroko's basketball. So does this mean that Blue Lock is snatching the gold medal for best sports anime? Yeah, no, definitely not. This show has a long way to go before even deserving to be mentioned in the same breath as Haikyuu, which I think is the best sports anime. Yes, I'm an average ball slapper enjoyer. While Blue Lock is a cookie-cutter anime in terms of storytelling, it is an interesting show in the sense that it provides a fresh take in such an oversaturated genre. I mean, excluding Blue Lock, there were 10 sports anime that came out in 2022 alone. Blue Lock certainly doesn't do anything groundbreaking with its core story, but as Joe from accounting who preaches that size doesn't matter will say, it makes up for it in other ways. Now to be clear, I think Blue Lock executes the story beats decently enough. It introduces its setting, establishes its characters and narrative setups, and have payoffs for those setups. The show executes these things decently enough, but Blue Lock is pretty one-dimensional. Every character has the same goal and same motivation, they're all strikers who are all trying to be the best, and that's the end goal of the show. It's quite shallow if you compare it to the top dog like Haikyuu, where the narratives are diverse for the characters and it fleshes out the story really well. You have a character like Kageyama whose past of being a self-centered and prideful setter on the court haunts him and is trying to learn how to be a team player to move on from his past attitude. Or even a character like Tsuki, who's a smug little cunt pretending not to like volleyball and is hesitant to work hard because he doesn't want to end up like his brother, but deep down he cares deeply about volleyball and his brother. Or even someone like Suga, goddammit, who is a role player and is aware of his status on the team but refuses to be complacent and wants to enjoy his final high school year playing volleyball. I can go on and on about Haikyuu, but the point being is that Haikyuu's storylines and characters are quite layered and have diverse character motivations, whereas Blue Lock is pretty superficial. But Blue Lock does get more interesting once we add in the unique concept and theme, which makes the show stand out more compared to the dozens of sports anime out there. It ditches the typical high school tournament style setting for something extremely unconventional. Hell, even the way they play the sport is pretty unconventional. There were only strikers on the field so that we got to have as many goals as possible to increase the amount of action. The show feels really novel with its unconventional methods, and it helps that, as long as we ignore the scenes where we see those god-awful 3D models, the animation is pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, no, seriously. God bless the poor Japanese animators who missed Christmas, their anniversary, their child's birthday, their wife's birthday, and their dog's funeral to work on this. Now, I want to address the theme of the show because the theme of Blue Lock is a bit of a departure from what other sports anime usually goes into, which is about the good morals that athletes showcase and represent, of teamwork and determination. and often explores the themes of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, where the main team succeeds not because of individual talent necessarily, but their intangible factors. Instead, Blue Lock is like, no, we don't do that here. Blue Lock's theme feels like such a drastic contrast, as it's essentially about awakening your ego and greed to have that want it factor that so many top athletes describe, which is about wanting to win so bad that you take your destiny into your own hands and dominate a match. And it could have been a really fresh and engaging theme if they did literally anything aside from how they executed it. The show tries to argue that being an egoist striker is more important than caring about winning, and it will make you the best striker and win the World Cup.
What?
Now, if you're an elite level top recruit D1 athlete like myself, then you would know that the James Harden approach is just not gonna work. Especially with how ego justifies it, top athletes don't win trophies by prioritizing their own performance. Yes, your superstars will demand the ball in high pressure situations, but they'd rather win than have good stats at the end of the match. The logic just doesn't add up. Hell, even Michael Jordan passed to Steve Kerr to hit a game-winning shot and win their 5th championship, and he's deemed as a tyrant. Now a Blue Lock defender might say, well, dear hater, in the Blue Lock universe they introduced Noel Noah to justify the theme. To that I say you are a dum-dum, if that's enough to persuade you to completely ignore sports fundamentals. It gets even worse when they bring in real-world references by mentioning Messi, Ronaldo, and Pele. Also, did you guys know that the Pele quote they showed in Blue Lock wasn't even from Pele? It was from his coach. And that Eric Cantona quote was fake too. So this show is just making shit up at this point to brainwash viewers into justifying Deirdre's nonsensical viewpoint. It's just so weird that he makes it seem like what he says is gospel. The whole I will make you unlock your ego and make you the world's best striker to win the World Cup just doesn't have a lot of merit into it. Especially in a sport like football where teamwork and coaching is such a huge factor in winning a tournament. Not just who scores the most goals, like Dora says. Listen, I'm not saying the theme is bad. I think it has a lot of potential to be explored. I even think that Kuroko's basketball explored it quite well through the character of Aomine Daiki, a character who's so much better than anyone else that he's bored of winning and now only plays for himself. He's one of one, not someone that can easily be replicated or beaten, until Kagami and Kuroko finally do so in a close match which kickstarts his gradual change. Now that's a good execution of the idea of an athlete's greed and ego. Blue Lock just tried to shoot their shot and missed badly with their attempt. At this point, the entire film, TV, animation, and gaming industry owes Battle Royale their entire revenue. You can literally come up with any story, make it a Battle Royale, and people will just watch it. The Battle Royale phenomenon needs to be examined and preserved for future historians. Now, don't get me wrong, the concept of a football Battle Royale is actually an intriguing way of having high stakes and suspense in the show. Win and you keep your chance of being Team Japan's striker, lose and you ruin your dreams and get stuck in the soul-sucking world of Japanese corporate life. I mean, you can't get stakes any higher than that. I will say though, Big Man Vector's a sly one. This guy just manipulated 300 strikers to sign up to career suicide, and somehow the Japan Football Union approved of this program? I mean, you can't even blame the strikers because Vector only mentions about the stipulation after they're already in the facility. The characters probably thought they were just going to boot camp. This is how people end up in legal trouble, by the way. At least Squid Game was clearly morally dubious, and the whole point of the show was to exploit financially struggling people for the entertainment of rich people. But in Blue Lock, they don't really present anything that argues Timothée Chalamet being an immoral guy. Like, barely anyone questions his actions. But hey, stupid logics aside, at least they do a good job of displaying the gravity of these stakes using the character of Ryosuke Kira, a young football prospect with a bright future. I mean, they just completely disrespect this man. The show purposefully makes the viewers think that he was gonna be one of the main players of the show. He's portrayed as this charismatic star player and like he was gonna be the counterpart of Isugi, kinda like Kageyama to Hinata. But they eliminate this poor fella in the first episode. Like, talk about subverting expectations, and in a good way too. Because that immediately tells the audience that this show ain't messing around. This scene was also a great way to show a hint of the characters and the theme of the show, with Isugi showing his greed and that he wants that number 1 spot by kicking the ball at Kira's face with the intent of murder. What's that I hear? Another overtime work for you, Sir Kira. And logic and world building aside, and I will try my damnedest to put it aside, as soon as we actually get the matches started, the suspense and gravity of the situation is captured pretty well throughout the season. You can really feel the desperation whenever Isugi and the lads are in the match. Every goal counts, Literally. Every time the other team scores against them, we can just feel the stress build up even more, which in turn makes their goals and wins that much more rewarding, not only for them, but also for the viewers too. Because we know what's on the line, and them winning doesn't just mean advancing on to the next phase. It means they're spared from Japanese corporate life. I just wish we weren't stuck in a prison-looking facility though, because it's just so dull. I get that they're trying to make it look desolate to reflect the situation the characters are in, but imagine if they made Blue Lock into a Coliseum-style facility instead. Or, you know, just a normal football stadium, where people can buy tickets and watch teenagers ruin their dreams before their eyes. That way there's another element of pressure for the players. I don't know, maybe they get heckled and called slurs as well to, you know, mimic real football fields. It also just makes the world building a little less nonsensical, because there's no way that Howard Wolowitz would be allowed to kidnap 300 teenagers with no monetary incentives for the suits in the union to begin with. Now obviously I say kidnap lightly because he didn't actually kidnap these teenagers, just, you know, slight persuasion tactics, like a shady car dealership, which doesn't sound that much better honestly. It just adds to the story, I think. They kinda address how stupid the Blue Lock program is when the union wanted to cancel it at the end of the show, but because it's anime they're gonna try to justify not cancelling it using brain-dead logic, which in Blue Lock's case is having the lads beat Japan's under-20s team next season, I guess, and like, why can't we just have logical reasons for the Blue Lock program existing to begin with? Give the teenagers contracts to sign and real rules and incentives. It's not gonna make Mandark's plan any less credible. In fact, his insane ideas become more legitimate by making this program ethical, and you can still add dramatic tension in this scenario if you're talented enough at writing. I know the excuse will be that, oh, it's an anime, just turn your brain off, tee-hee. But just like, why can't we have coherent logic and role building in anime, huh? Tell me! An underrated thing about the Blue Lock system is that you get fantasy rosters quite frequently. I remember when I used to watch Kuroko's Basketball or Haikyuu and thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if Aomina or Kagami played together? Or, wow, what if Oikawa was Hinata's setter? Then I just read the last few chapters of the manga. But the point is, Blue Lock rotates the roster so often that you get to see all the characters' abilities bounce off each other in unique ways so much. And they get really creative with it. A scam aside, I have to give props to Edna Mode for coming up with a good system. You have the first round of playing tag, which really just gives the athletes and the audience a feel for the Blue Lock's tone and system, as well as establishing the ground rules and the major players in the show. And the show does a good job of having a diverse enough ensemble cast despite all of them being strikers. They all have their own unique and quirky personalities and playstyles that we get glimpses of throughout the show. You have your bruiser type strikers like Edgelord and Ichigo and this guy who belongs in an ASMR video. You have your speedsters like Princess 1 and high flyers like Princess 2. You have your shifty players like Nagi and Schizo Man. Then you have your playmakers like Ryo, Isagi, and Rin, who right now is just a better version of Isagi. Of course there are other characters, but based on how the season is going, these are probably the main player in the series. You then proceed to a round robin where 2 out of the top 5 teams win. Being the top scorer on your team, even if your team is out, still means that you get to advance in the next round, which adds so much pressure within teams to score, which also creates tension, and tension in storytelling is good, because now you have an objective in the story to work on. You have Isagi's teams fighting for goals in the beginning that cost them the match, and their losses just force their characters to make extreme decisions for their own benefit, like with this little rat betraying the boys. But what's good about these extreme decisions are that they make sense if you listen to their reasonings, and it also acts as setups for eventual character growth. Like with this little rat making a dirty play during their final round robin so that Isagi and the boys can win their match against Nagi and his team. And it's quite fitting too, because he helps the team he betrayed by making a dirty play on the other team. Another example of this is Isagi later devouring the donkey and the donkey devouring him back to get better and overcome a difficult match during the next phase of 3v3s and 4v4s. It's like I said, this show indeed does have setups and payoffs, and their payoffs are quite alright. Certainly one of the payoffs of all time. And a lot of these payoffs are triggered by one common denominator: Isagi. Being the main character, of course, is going to be the catalyst for a lot of the characters' changes. All of the characters on this show are complete psychopaths and desperately need therapy, by the way. This twink especially with his schizophrenia demon. But hallucinations aside, he had a pretty huge role in Season 1. He's a skilled dribbler who became the playmaker for Isagi's team, and he's someone who relied on Isagi on the field because they're in sync with how they want to play football. Little Twink Boy sees him as that monster on the field who understands his brand of football. But this over-reliance makes him fall behind later on in the show when Isagi has all his focus on Rin. And after feeling left behind, Little Twink Boy overcomes his schizophrenia demon after realizing that he can't rely on the voices in his head, get away from mean intrusive thoughts, and that he's a strong independent striker who don't need no man. Izuki was also the reason for Princess Number 1 overcoming his injury anxiety and unlocking his full potential. He was also responsible for Edgelord having his little Joker moment after a temper tantrum on the field because the other kids won't pass him the ball. But silliness aside, the way they executed Edgelord's arc is pretty good. Instead of going the traditional route of having a change of heart after realizing his greed, he basically just tells everyone to go fuck themselves and double down on being a cunt. And that's actually one of the things that I really like about the show. All of the characters' journeys and growths are always driven by ego. They stay pretty consistent with the theme, which not a lot of films, shows, or anime do well nowadays, so props to Blue Lock, I guess. Even characters like Nagi and Reo, their decisions are motivated by ego. Nagi cheating on Reo with Izuki because he's better and Reo taking it personal. Then we got the big dog, Izuki, whose idea of playing soccer keeps evolving throughout the show. He doesn't have the athleticism or skills to become the best striker, so he uses his IQ, on-court vision, and other people to advance, becoming more ego-driven and passionate about soccer in the process. We even start to see him turn into a bit of a sadist when he sends these kids home packing. I think it would have been interesting if they doubled down that route for future seasons and become completely unhinged, exploring the theme of having a price to pay for your success and burning some bridges along the way. I think that would be cool, but let's see what the show does with it. I'm just gonna take a moment to appreciate the visual metaphors in the show, just to take my mind off of how much I still just hate the logic and world building of this show. Princess Number 1 overcoming his mental hurdle and breaking the chains, finally being an unshackled beast and turning into the Flash, was one of the coolest and more rewarding scenes in the show, to be honest. Then you have Izuki's processing being visualized through puzzle pieces that shows what type of player he is. He's a cerebral player, not a striker who brute forces his goals through sheer athleticism. Or even with all the harrowing visuals surrounding Edgelord that matches the dreading possibility that he may not be the main character. Then simply saying, you know what, no, I am the main character. And with all the visuals of him turning into this imposing demon king, which is pretty fitting for his character who's supposed to be this tyrant. They really go over the top with the imagery, but I personally love it because it adds a unique style to the show. The ending of Blue Lock leaves you with the biggest feeling of blue balls that you'll ever feel in your life. Yet Izuki's team losing against Rin's team, emotions are high on both sides. They're about to play the World 5 with very questionable English.
Is this okay? Japanese
sightseeing trip is gonna turn traumatic.
Only to have their ass pounded and then move on to the next phase. But hey, at least we get introduced to new characters, I guess, and got teased to the feature premise of going head-to-head against Japan's Under 20 squad. And that's how it ends. Whether or not that this is gonna be the growth of sports anime is to be decided, but Season 1 certainly doesn't give me any indications that it will. I mean, sure, it beats out your average sports anime that pops up so often, but it doesn't compare to the first season of the actual top sports anime out there. Blue Lock is like that one weirdo in school who bullies nerds, but gets his face dunked in the toilets by actual chads. I'm gonna compare Blue Lock to Haikyuu and Kuroko's Basketball because they're the top 2 most popular sports anime in my anime list. In fact, 8 out of the top 10 is occupied by these two shows. And if you compare the first seasons of those two shows to Blue Lock, I just think they're better written and have a more complete ending. As a full season, the other two just feel more satisfying with better setups and payoffs. Now earlier I did praise Blue Lock for having good payoffs, but it doesn't execute them better than Haikyuu, and if you don't believe me, I'll just explain the beauty of Haikyuu. It's the final set against Aoba Josai. Both teams down to the final rally. Kageyama thinks he's got the perfect set for Hinata to spike and win the game. A spike that he hated because it rejects traditional volleyball. A set that he perfected throughout the season to cater towards Hinata's unconventional spiking methods. A spiking method that has both lost and won them games before. And at this moment, Kageyama believes that this is the perfect set. For the first time ever, he trusts his teammate. That his spike and that this play will win them the game. This would be the play that would make him beat his former idol. A setter who despises him and is jealous of him because of his talent. Except it is exactly because of Oikawa's jealousy towards Kageyama that makes Oikawa see the personal growth in him and makes him predict the play and completely shut out the spike, making Kageyama, Hinata, and the rest of Karasuno lose. This defeat leaves a somber mood to everyone at Karasuno for the first time since the group formed at the beginning of the school year, regret filling everyone's minds. Despite Kageyama being a prodigy as a setter and having his past reputation, he blames his past rather than his teammates, showing how far he's come since his King of the Court days. Hinata continues to live by his name, meaning son, telling Kageyama to not apologize for his passing. Despite a tough loss with moments of regret for everyone, Karasuno as a team is still determined to play volleyball and reach the heights that the previous iteration of the roster reached. Anyway, I just wanted to make that mini pretentious video essay to show that yes, Blue Lock has decent writing, it has your basic structure of setups and payoffs, but it just doesn't compare to Season 1 of Haikyuu, especially in the emotional execution of these payoffs. Haikyuu has a conclusion that leaves viewers feeling satisfied, but also has room for potential storylines for the following season. If only one season of Haikyuu existed, it would still be a good story. The same can't be said for Blue Lock though. Now with the recent announcement of Season 2, maybe that tops Haikyuu's second season, so we'll have to wait and see, but currently it gets stomped by Haikyuu on the storytelling level. Now just because I'm saying it doesn't match up to some of the best sports anime out there doesn't mean it's a trash show. Blue Lock is a good show with a different flavor from your usual sports anime, and I certainly enjoyed watching it. Yeah, that's right, I can separate my objective views from my subjective tastes, and the show was pretty hyped to watch. If you enjoy watching sports anime, then I'm sure you'll have fun watching this. On a meta level, maybe Blue Lock surpasses the cultural impact of Haikyuu or Kuroko's basketball, who knows. All I know is the amount of Nagi t-shirts from sketchy anime merch websites that I've been seeing is just skyrocketing in the past month, so it's off to a good start. Because after all, bootleg merch is a good indicator on the show's cultural impact. One thing is for certain though, and it's that the yaoi meter of this show is certainly matching both Haikyuu and Kuroko. So while it may not be king of sports anime, it definitely has captured the hearts of all the Jessicas who spend too much time reading fanfiction, and to them, Blue Lock is the best.